Cabin 13 Productions.
You guys are in a war, but somehow you guys are still finding time to listen to us, so we appreciate you guys. I don't know why you're laughing. It's not it's a serious matter.
No,
like
Nagoya?
I don't even know how to pronounce where you're from. That's tall.
Have you ever stood?
I have stood next to a gorilla, thank you for asking. And they don't have Gigantopithecus. Like, they're like, you know, they can barely walk. They gotta be on...
I'm such a loser, sweating God, I'm the worst.
Albert Ostman's 1924 encounter is one of the strangest, most debated, and, if we're being honest, kind of hilarious Bigfoot story that there is. He wasn't just kidnapped, he was an unwilling house guest, fed strange vegetation, and ultimately outwitted his captors with nothing more but chewing tobacco. Whether you believe the story or not, it's a tale that leaves you questioning just how weird the wilderness really is. On this episode of the Woodsmen podcast, we're diving deep into one of the most bizarre Sasquatch abduction cases ever recorded and ask the real questions. 1. Was Albert Ostman really telling the truth? 2. Was it just a hallucination? Or 3. Is it just another layer to the mystery of Bigfoot? Let's find out and let's dive in, chat.
Welcome back to the Woodsman podcast. We're your hosts, Joey Rucker.
And Brent Murphy.
And another day, another nickel.
Yeah. You know, it's been a week.
It's been more.
It's been how many weeks?
No, I mean, since last recording, it's been about 9 days. 9 days.
Yeah, 9 days. We are currently recording on Wednesday, March 5th at 9:15 p.m. We gotta go to work at 8 a.m. tomorrow, and knowing our episodes, by the way, we recorded housekeeping first, which means we definitely haven't done any of the main show.
We're gonna be here a while.
We're gonna be here a while, but welcome back. We're glad you're here. I can't say the same for us. We might just be a little bit tired, but yeah. Sleep is for the weak, man.
Dude, I gave up on sleep a long time ago. I'm just here, dude.
I'm just vibing. I'm just here for the vibe. Well, we hope you guys like this episode. It's going to be a great one. This is also one that Joey has no idea what's going to be said. So I could completely go off on a different tangent and he'd just be like, huh, interesting. So, well, welcome to Weirdness Week, guys. This is the week out of the month where we discuss odd, paranormal, and supernatural encounters. And this week's episode is the Albert Ostman kidnapping. So we hope you guys enjoy it. It's going to be a fun one.
I'm pissed. I like Brent said, I didn't know anything about this story. I mean, maybe Brent mentioned it to me at some point.
I mentioned it quite a few times, but I don't think like for
had
a podcast.
No idea it was about Bigfoot. And after hearing our intro play just now, I was like, damn, I got roped into another Bigfoot episode. All right, let's...
Because as you know, Joey loves interdimensional Bigfoot, so we had to bring another one up. You know?
I still think interdimensional Bigfoot would be one of those things we should have on Woodsman merch. I think.
Oh, I hope
that
so.
would be a good one.
That would be
like
great.
slab of meat,
just like a big ass foot in the middle of the shirt. You know,
it's on like a little... like cliche looking flying saucer.
Yeah. Of course, like the little saucer disc. Yeah, it'd be great. It would be great.
The slab of meat is just my head, but it looks like
a T-bone.
Yeah,
like next to it.
Airtight, like fetus.
It just says slab of on the top and then it's just meat at the bottom, and it's like that Steve-O portrait that you got tattooed on his back where he's just like 2 thumbs up and his mouth wide open, but it's just you. It's perfect.
It's perfect.
Yeah, it'd be great.
Well, we also hope you enjoyed our last episode about our survivaling.
It's our survivaling episode.
It's late, guys. It's late. Our survival episodes in the woods, and definitely seems like you guys enjoyed it because we actually have new countries that are listening, and I'm also just gonna be transparent with you, chat. This is part of the
This is part of the
outline,
episode where I have
and
to
I have
look
no
it up.
idea what these stats are.
It's okay.
But I'll
it's
say
okay.
this. I also hope that you enjoyed the aspect of getting to hear Brent's spooky story. It was fun to edit the video last week, getting to kind of show and compare and contrast our Shadow Boys encounters. But
Yeah, it's you know, we're still trying to figure it out. Wanna know what's crazy is that because I think I had mentioned in the podcast that when my mom saw the photo, because you know my whole family we're into weird stuff, and Joey's just over here like you guys are crazy, you know, like, but my mom's into all that stuff, and you know when we had mentioned like the wolf thing, it freaked me out enough to buy. I mean, you probably can't see it because I have the mic in front of my neck. I'm gonna move to the side.
oh, here.
Yeah. So, for any of our audio listeners, it made me a little paranoid. I'm not gonna lie, it made me a little paranoid. I bought a blessed wolf clawed necklace from the tribe that is closest to our house, which would be the Serrano tribe, and it's handmade, blessed, and you know, I'm not saying I don't want any more spooky encounters. I hope they keep coming. I just want to make sure that nothing happens. I'm covering all my bases, you know? Like, I just want to make sure nothing happens
Just
to the
to be
point
safe.
you know, I don't want no SWs coming out and just snatching me, or Joey for that matter. I mean, Joey's a snack.
Some might
so
call
he
you
could be-
superstitious
yeah.
or crazy.
I'm just calling myself. I'm
Prepared.
covering the bases. Yeah, I'm not trying to die, bro. Like, I don't know what's going on, but yeah, we'll keep you guys updated with that one because I'm actually trying to go back to the spot that we have been where both of these situations have happened right after, and trying to do another spirit box session for anyone who is a loyal Patreon member. Shout out the Woodsman Pod at /patreon.com. It's the
Yeah.
Woodsman Podcast.
It's patreon.com/thewoodsman
Yeah,
podcast.
yeah,
but yes,
yeah.
yes.
You get it. Yeah. Don't worry, we'll go through that in the housekeeping. But you know, if you guys joined that, our first episode was actually a spirit box sesh. So I'm hoping maybe it might be another little teaser. But let's get back to the countries. Let's get back to the countries because we're trying to blow through this housekeeping because we take so
And it's already going
monumentally
super
long.
well. It's 7 minutes.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. But yeah, we have some new countries listening, so I'll list the top ones, which I will say,
Loyal fans.
or Aussie listeners,
Aussie listeners.
they are still at number 2 on the countries.
I'm starting to think that it actually is working.
I am too. I'm not going to question it whatsoever. But coming up at number 1, we have the United States, obviously, I would hope, you know. I mean, if it wasn't the United States, I'd be very surprised. But but we have Australia coming in at 2. At 3, Japan. Japan, you guys are stepping up. You guys are
Nice.
moving up the list. So thank you guys. We appreciate you. We have the Ukraine at number 4.
Dope.
Yeah. I mean, you guys are in a war, but somehow you guys are still finding time to listen to us, so we appreciate you guys. I don't know why you're laughing. It's not it's a serious matter.
No,
Like
no, it's definitely serious. That's why I was like, yeah.
shout out Ukraine. Like Joey's out
No,
here
they're-
laughing at you guys, but like
I'm literally
I
not
love you
laughing
guys,
at them.
you
I'm
know.
laughing at the comment. It's so crazy to say, well, thanks for spending time during your war to watch
listen to
our
us. Out of
dumbasses.
everybody, you're listening to us, so we appreciate you guys. But we have France coming after them, which is pretty crazy.
Oh.
And the new one, Bangladesh.
Bangladesh. All right, it's
Yeah.
time for me to do a Bangladesh accent.
Just don't do it
Not
now
even gonna-
because
not
you
even gonna attempt
you
it.
don't even know what it
I don't
sounds
know
like.
what a Bangladesh
Please don't.
person sounds like.
But yeah, we
Bangladeshi.
appreciate you guys. We appreciate you guys. And I will say for our top cities, I got 4 here: Sydney, New South Wales, You guys are at number 1, which is wild. At least for the last episode,
wild.
Alone in the Woods. That you guys are the top. So we appreciate you guys so much. After that, we got Ashburn in Virginia. Shout out Mothman territory. Yeah. Or West Virginia, but you know, you're close. You're only like a little bit away, but we love you guys. Appreciate you. We got I'm sorry. I do not know how to pronounce this. Joe, you want to read the third one?
Of course.
Top cities.
Okay. Is it all right? Yeah, it's Nagoya.
I don't even know how to pronounce where you're from, but
thank you.
yeah, we love you. I'm going to assume that might be Bangladesh because I've never seen that one yet so far, and Bangladesh is new. But yeah, and then we have Paris, which sounds a little made up, but I love you guys. If you guys are a real place, Paris.
I mean,
Yeah,
thanks.
we appreciate you guys listening.
Keep listening,
We love you
please.
guys. We love you guys. But yeah. So going from there.
I also wanted to mention that it also seems like you guys enjoyed it because the episode has not been out long. Sorry, but we already have 42 views, which is kind of from
On
what it looks
YouTube,
like.
on
our,
YouTube.
Yeah, on YouTube.
Yeah.
It's sort of our standard to hit about 30 episodes from what it looks, or 30 views per episode, which is pretty cool. So to hit it that soon is also pretty nice.
Yeah, because we did we release this one a little bit later, right? I would assume.
I mean, it came out at midnight. Yeah. And
Yeah.
It was at 20 something views like the next day.
Haven't done a lot of promotion besides just the usual, like, hey, this episode's up.
Been
So,
busy, guys.
Yeah, we
Been
hope
busy.
you guys like it. We have realized that almost every single, like, either weirdness in the woods or alone in the woods, anything that has a woods title, which makes sense because we are the Woodsmen. You guys seem to like those episodes.
Yeah,
So
it's
maybe,
odd. Maybe we should do that more often.
Maybe
Hopefully you guys will like
Yeah.
interdimensional Bigfoot. Not that this one's interdimensional. Not all are.
he's not. Yeah, this one is not interdimensional. So, but it does take place in the woods. So we hope
So
you
there
guys
you go.
like it. Maybe you just got to put woods in every single name. That's what I'm thinking.
Just so that we get the
Yeah.
interaction,
The
I feel it.
engagement. It's all
The-
about the engagement.
the engagement.
We love you guys. Well, any paranormal stuff happen lately?
I'll say I have not seen anything regarding Shadow Boy.
It's good. It's good.
I haven't seen anything like that in a while. I haven't had really any encounters, but I have thought about your picture a lot. So I mean, I find myself looking at it more.
We actually have had people who work with us that have been watching that episode, and I want to say a lot of it has to do with the weirdness in the woods. Shout out Alone in the Woods, not Weirdness in the Woods, but yeah, interesting stuff. Well, I haven't had anything happen either.
That's
so.
good. Let's try and keep it that way for now. I feel like we're so busy with our work and
We're
Patreon.
probably too tired to even realize.
Yeah, maybe
that
there's
things
stuff
are
around. And
happening.
we
Maybe
just,
stuff is actually going on.
maybe he's with us right now.
For any of our audio listeners, we looked around the room to see if anything's happening. But
We also want to let you guys know that Patreon, we're thinking of you. We love you. We truly do. We're not. When we say it's been brutal, it has been so brutal to try and make time to record. But
we 5 12-hour days
yeah, so
straight.
it's unhealthy.
It's definitely
But
not real.
we-
It sounds like it's not real, but it definitely has happened.
Doesn't feel real.
It doesn't feel real. It doesn't.
It's
feel
it's
real.
those types of work shifts where you're like, at the end of the day, you can't tell if something you did in the beginning of the day was yesterday or not.
Yeah.
It's one of those.
Well, when you have to wake up before the sun wakes up,
Mhm.
and then you get to work before the sun wakes up, it's a little hard to
It's
distinguish
tough.
your days,
It's
dude.
very
It's
tough.
hard, and then you get out when the sun's asleep. So
But we are planning this week.
Yes.
We are planning
Yes.
to get things back on track. We don't think if we're sticking to the schedule we're looking at, we're not going to be getting a Patreon episode recorded this week. But
We're
we will be
hoping by the
getting
end of the
it-
month, 2 episodes, hopefully.
Yeah,
That's
you'll at least have
hopefully.
one episode. Here we go. Woodsman promise. You'll have at least one Patreon episode out in
Yeah.
public. But hopefully going forward, we will be able to do, with how we're structuring and formatting things, we'll be able to do at least 2 episodes a month, like we originally wanted to do.
Yeah.
So
We're
please
sorry.
don't give up on the
Yeah.
Patreon. It's been in almost every episode's outro for almost everyone, even before we had it, and we still do want to do it. It's been tough.
It's been a lot, guys. It's been a lot. I will say it's not on at this point. It's really not on us. It's more like, we either record or we suffer through and not sleep and then have to do 8 to 10 hour shifts, and it's so much.
Not
And
great.
we thought us being in the same workplace, it would be easier. It's actually monumentally harder. It is so much harder because even though we work in the same place, sometimes we don't even have the same hours. So it's like trying to schedule things, trying to get things worked out, trying to just do what we want to do in general. It just doesn't happen. So, we're trying so
We
hard.
promise we're okay.
But
It's
we're
just- it's
52
just tough.
episodes in, and I am so tired. I am so
Yeah.
tired, man. This season is the most. It is taking the
It's
most
been
out
the
of me.
most taxing. But
Yeah.
we love you, and that's why
That's why we still do it.
we're gonna still do it.
Yeah.
I still I enjoy doing it. I enjoy
No, I enjoy doing
as much
it.
as it makes me tired. I enjoy getting to learn about Jeff,
Bigfoot.
Jeff,
Yeah.
the
Talking mongoose,
talking mongoose,
which is not a goose.
not a goose. Just in case you didn't know that. I love learning about the woods and Bigfoot, and
He's more like a ferret.
yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, no one really knows exactly what he is. We just kind of settled on.
I think
keep
everyone
almost saying
settled on him
meerkat.
being a mongoose, but
Yeah.
like we don't really know what he is. But shout out Jeff the mongoose if you're
Definitely
listening.
shout out, buddy.
Come,
we love
come
you.
hang with us for sure. We'd love to have you in the studio.
And to leave us off with at the end of our housekeeping, I would like to say that I've been chatting with AI to help me learn how to do a Bangladesh accent, and I'm going
Really?
to attempt it right now.
Oh
The
God.
sentence I'm going to take and try is, "Brother, I'm thinking we should go to the market now. What are you saying? Based on what it's telling me to say, it should be brighter. I am thinking we should go to the market. What are you saying?" I don't think that's good at all. Thank you. We'll see you in May 1.
That sounds highly racist.
brighter. It said, "We'll see you in a minute."
Well, if you guys have any questions,
Oh, yeah.
comment. Yeah.
We're back.
We're not done. We're not done.
I'm just like, yeah, let's move on. No.
Well, we actually do have one more, like, real housekeeping out of everything we've talked about. We've been going on for 17 minutes now. We said we were going to try and do
never
this
happens.
in 5 to 10
It's okay.
minutes.
Our episodes have honestly gotten to almost 2 hours consistently.
Yeah.
Every time. now.
Yeah, hour and 45 to 2 hours.
Mhm.
Easy. But I will say Cabin 13
yes.
Productions news. I have been working, if this podcast wasn't enough, soon within the next, I will say Woodsman promise, within the next several months, not few months, not a couple months, in several months, we'll be coming out with a new show. So we hope you guys are ready for that. Stay tuned, and we'll be giving updates as it comes. I've told Joey about it. I'm not going to say refuses to read my scripts, but he just doesn't believe that I'm going to actually pull through and actually do it with the amount
You're
of time we
twisting
don't
my
have.
words. It's that I
I-
don't know how you can. It's
I
not
don't
that I
either.
don't think you
I don't
want to.
either.
I'm sure you are dedicated and you are thrilled to do this show. But I want to do my movie podcast. That's supposed to be my extra show. And I'm not even going to try right now. It's not worth it. My brain hurts.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
but-
if you like the spooky topics,
Yeah.
like the topic we're gonna talk about tonight, stuff like this. If you're into the alien episodes, ghost stuff, all the weird stuff that people call you crazy for, Stay tuned because that's all the podcast is going to be about. So hope you guys enjoy it, and we'll give some more updates and maybe a little hint or two either in the main show or on Patreon. So make sure to subscribe, and you might get some more info before anyone else. So yeah. Well, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, stories, or inquiries on Cabin 13 itself or our studio space, you can go and head on over to the woodsmanpod@gmail.com.
Also, please make sure to go follow us on Instagram and X @woodsmanpod, where we post most of our stuff.
I'd say daily, but it's more like weekly at this point. But
more consistent than Patreon. If
you 100%. Yeah. And lastly, you can subscribe to our Patreon again for our candid, uncensored show, Back to the Cabin, at patreon.com/The Woodsman Podcast, not The Woodsman Podcast /patreon.com, which I was told that was wrong. So,
well, with that said, let's get on with the show, Broider.
Please stop.
Okay.
Well, all right, guys. So we are setting the scene in Main 1, just with the whole story in general, right? I decided, if we're going to do this, we might as well just go straight through, a little bit of banter, but for the most part, we will...
Yeah, we'll see how that actually goes, but
yeah,
because
we'll
we always
try.
say that.
We'll
We're always
try.
like, let's just rush through it. We'll read it word for word.
It doesn't happen. But I will say we have quite a bit of source information on this episode, but the main source for all the info that you guys are going to get, you guys can actually find at SASQUATCHAlberta.com. And this is actually an interview / blog post where Albert Ostman himself actually recalls the event that happened to him in general. So I figured if we're going to read anything, that's definitely going to be the place that you're going to get the best information because it's coming from the guy himself. So
sounds good.
Just thought we'll just dive in, and then if you have any questions, which you'll definitely take a shot, chat. We already said it like probably 2 or 3 times already this episode. So you know the drill. You know the game. You know the drinking game. This is the Woodsman Podcast. We literally have clinks in between every single segment, so you might as well take a shot every clink too.
Every clink.
Yeah, every clink, every dive in. Oh, take another shot. No, that's our party rules. Those are house rules here at the stew.
Here at the cabin.
Yep. Oh, back at the cabin, bro. Oh man. Well, let's just go on and see when you're trying so really hard not to say it.
Dive in,
yeah.
Dude.
Take a shot.
Say it, dude. Sorry, Travis.
All right. Well, if you're ready.
Yes, please. I want to know about Albert.
Yeah.
I still don't know. Again,
I was waiting for you to say
kidding.
his last name, but
Ostman?
Yeah.
Osman?
Ostman.
I don't know anything about this story.
This is why I love doing the creepy ones, because Joey doesn't even read my scripts like when we do these ones. So
That's
it's always
not
funny.
True. Actually, no, it's actually not true. This time I didn't have a lot of time.
No, that's right.
A lot of times what I do is on the day of recording, I'm like, okay, now it's time to read, because it wouldn't have stayed in my head if I read it 3 days ago.
That's fair.
I get here and I'm like, okay, all right. Oh, no. then like,
he's not a goose.
Yeah, he's not a literally. It's like, oh my god, he's not a goose. What? I thought
a mongoose is a real mammal. That's crazy.
Me out here thinking he was a meerkat.
Well, all right, man. Let's see how you feel about this interesting story. I will say this is probably one of the craziest Bigfoot stories I've ever encountered. So you ready?
I'm so ready, dog.
I'm like trying to like,
here it goes.
We're going to go through the whole thing right now. So Albert Ostman, first of all, was a lumberjack and prospector and an outdoorsman. So He was already a certified woodsman. Let's just say
He would have been a
certified.
great guest on our show,
Exactly, man. Too bad he's dead now. But
just like Liam.
you can only go one direction, and his was down. So that's all I got to say. So he worked in a lot of logging camps and spent time like searching for gold, mineral, all that kind of stuff. Mineral deposits specifically in the remote wilderness of British Columbia, so like Canada area.
Mm-hmm.
If that's wrong, I'm gonna feel so dumb because I did so much research on this. But yeah, British Columbia, yeah.
Is it like is it one
Canada,
of those
right?
things where you hear the well, dude,
Anyways, so
I literally never learned geography
I didn't
in
either.
my life.
I
You
didn't
could
either.
say geography is the study of shapes, and I wouldn't tell you you're wrong.
Bro thinks he's doing geometry. but
Yeah,
it's-
dude. I would literally, that's how incredibly uninformed I am.
That's fair. Well,
British
he's-
Columbia.
Yeah, British Columbia. Easy. So his extensive experience in the outdoors made this detailed account of just the Sasquatch abduction. And it's so funny to say that. Of the Sasquatch abduction, particularly intriguing to researchers. And some saw it as a credible, source and him being a credible witness due to his survival skills and knowledge of the wild. So this happened in 1924. So pretty old, relatively old. He set out for a gold hunting trip in Toba Inlet in British Columbia in his early 30s. So a little bit older than us as we are right now. I'm 25 or 24. So we're looking at like 6 to maybe 8 years, older than us right now. So
It is
still pretty
It
young.
is in Canada, by the way.
yeah, it is in Canada.
I looked
All
it
right,
up.
cool. I'm glad I'm not dumb.
I mean,
cool.
I knew that because I learned geography.
Yeah, that's it definitely wasn't the internet. So when he went on this expedition, he had heard stories of lost gold mines in the area, and he wanted to try his luck in just, panning for gold, doing all that kind of stuff. Basically, we went to Calico Ghost Town, and we went to Riley's Farm, all that kind of stuff.
Calico was one of my favorite all-time field trips ever.
It's so fun, dude. It's so fun over there. Highly recommend if you're in California, definitely check that place
check
out.
it out.
And Pioneer Town. Pioneer Town is pretty cool.
Literally, my favorite attraction was that house that's like an obstacle illusion.
Yeah.
because it's like sideways or something.
Yeah.
but you're leaning the wrong way.
Because, dude, I remember they gave us the little tour and said that bro had a leg that was shorter than the other or something
Mhm.
like that. So he
Yeah.
built it sideways or something. But I
Super
don't know
cool.
if that's true. They might just be, feeding you bullshit because it's an attraction.
Yeah,
but
dude.
I mean, it was pretty sick. I mean, it's
It's
pretty
cool
cool.
at the
Yeah, it's
time.
cool. It's cool now, man.
It is cool now.
Yeah. But not only did he hear stories about gold mines, but local indigenous people, so some Native Americans in the area, they had actually warned him about quote unquote wild men living in those mountains. But of course, like every white man tends to do, and I say it being a white man, he brushed it off as folklore. He was like, yeah, these fools don't know what they're talking about. Well, we will find out later that there were some wild men in those woods. He packed up all his food, all of his provisions for several weeks. So he was not going out there for a couple days. It was several weeks. He was like, hey, well, know what I'm going to do on my summer vacation? Instead of going on a nice trip, I'm just going to pan for gold. that's what bro
Hey
wanted
man, times
to
were
just
different
do.
back then. You had to find interest where you could. And
Yeah. I mean, there's no
panning for
TV,
gold?
there's no phones. You had to do
what
what
if
you
you
had to
find
do.
gold? It was like,
Then you got more money. Then you don't gotta go work no more.
Exactly.
He was a logger. He was probably like, my back hurts.
I'll literally say this: I don't even understand panning for gold. I couldn't explain. You put something in water and then all of a sudden you shake it around and then there's gold.
I think it's
No.
you put the minerals or you just scoop it up in the pan and then you kind of filter out, I guess, the gold from the dirt.
Weren't they
and
doing
everything.
it in like rivers and stuff?
Yeah.
They were just
Because they're
But why
in
was there-
riverbeds.
But why?
I don't know. Ask geography.
That
We
I never
obviously
learned
never had it,
You
so
know
it
that's a
doesn't
sensitive
matter.
topic. I never learned geography.
Neither did it. We went to the same school. We don't know what we're talking about.
That's fair.
We're masters of nothing, man. We are experts on one topic for a week, and then we forget everything.
We
That's
fired
all.
more teachers at our school than any of them actually taught us.
We
anything.
fired more teachers than we learned.
Yeah.
That's all I gotta say. So this
I'm
topic
sorry.
leads.
Yeah, I'm gonna need some clarification because the next part of our story is called the Midnight Kidnapping.
Yeah. So it happened. It was like a thief in the night, you know, but like they kidnapped him. So, just gonna go into it.
do it.
Yeah. So after a few days of him prospecting and setting up camp, Ostman had an unsettling feeling as if something was watching him, which I will say, if we're gonna dive into, take a shot.
Take a shot.
If we're gonna dive into all of the
Take a shot.
other, yeah.
Sorry.
You gotta stop because then I'm just gonna keep saying it. People are gonna be drunk by like the first 11 minutes of the main topic. If we look and we examine previous episodes where we have talked about weird things happening in the woods, common occurrences, people feel watched. People
Mhm.
feel like, you know, oh, there's something weird about this.
Some kind
you
of
know?
presence.
There's
kind
something
of
there.
Watchful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And my man in 1924 went through the same thing. You know, it has nothing to do with any common occurrences now. This is something that's been going on for quite a while. But he also, not only just feeling like things were watching him while he was out there, because again, he was out there for several weeks. This wasn't like a, you know, weekend camping trip. This was
Mhm.
like, yeah, I'm going out there for like the summer, you know?
Yeah.
He also noticed small disturbances in the campsite, which would freak me out because that means they're like out in your area, like missing food, which that already it'd be like,
You know,
it's not a bear,
Because
you know,
that's
like because
funny,
there's
'cause
signs.
The next
like,
thing is that he also mentions he chalked it up to being wildlife, and I was just gonna say, I immediately, being the skeptic I am, was just like, dude, it's the wild. It could have been a raccoon. It could have
yeah.
been a deer, a bear. It could have.
But
been
it's like
anything.
there's signs. There's signs of wildlife taking your food. You know, like bears don't just like, I'm gonna grab this can of soup and like they just grab it.
They
and
can
there's
though.
no
It's not
other-
unheard of that a bear could just be like, and
They
then he
can,
walks
but
away.
they don't like no tracks, no anything like that.
That's fair.
You know,
I
it's
mean,
a little.
I
it's a
don't
little
see
s-
anything on this doc that says there were no tracks, but I'll take you at your word. You know more
yeah,
about the
no,
story
that's fair.
than I.
That's fair. But yeah, I mean, he didn't. Again, this was like coming straight from his story. He didn't say anything about there being any tracks. So,
All right.
but it's fine. It's fine. We'll keep diving in
Yes,
because
tell me
let me
more.
tell you, it gets crazy. So one night he bedded down in his sleeping bag with his rifle and supplies close by. And if you go more into like his actual recalling of the story, his rifle was in his sleeping bag with him, you know? So like he got in the bag and then like he kind of just had it on the side of him or whatever, just so it's like it's there
Yeah.
for him. You know, because like when things get cold, especially like guns and everything, you know, maybe sometimes they'll misfire or they'll, you know, not work, you know, jam up. I'm not a gun connoisseur, so like I don't really know like exactly what goes on with that, but I know that the weather definitely affects like,
Yeah.
you
of
know,
course.
the gun and like
Mhm.
how it operates, right? So he had it like tucked in with his sleeping bag, right? With him in it. In the middle of the night, he woke up to the sensation of being lifted off of the ground in the sleeping bag.
There's like,
It takes a turn for the worse so fast.
that was such a 180 in the story.
Yeah.
I'm thinking he hears a noise. He
No.
prepares his gun.
Like this
He
is like
looks out in the
sound
dark.
sleep.
Instead,
Just
he's just
Yeah, gets lifted off the
For our audio
ground.
listeners, I just did a standing up thing.
A standing
I
up
couldn't
thing.
think
Joey
of-
stood up. That's what he did. He stood up out of his chair.
I'm sorry, Chad.
So-
I'm sorry that I am verbally.
Challenged.
Yeah.
So he was completely wrapped inside the sleeping bag, unable to see what was happening. So bro was basically like hobo sacked, like off the ground with him inside the sleeping bag.
What?
Yeah, he was inside the hobo sack.
At that point, don't you just accept it?
Yeah, I mean,
What
what,
are you
else
supposed
are you
to-
gonna do? I mean, he accepted it because he didn't
'cause
leave the
At
bag.
the same time, you could think maybe someone is stalking me. Maybe they like took advantage.
But who's tall enough to lift you off the
I'm
ground?
not saying it's logical. I'm saying you try and find something.
Yeah,
You try
I mean,
and-
I'm sure he tried. I'm sure he tried. This is the middle of the night, though, so you gotta. So, anyways, he felt himself being carried for what he estimated was 3 hours.
Did he not? I don't know if you know or not, but did he not try to escape or anything?
I mean-
he genuinely accepted it. Like
Yeah, I mean, what are you
he's in a
gonna
sleeping
do?
bag. Did he not have a? He has a gun,
you
but he
have to
doesn't have a
remem-
knife.
But you have to remember, like, if you're being carried, like, if you're like say someone was tall enough to like
Yes.
grab the ends of your sleeping bag and like
Yeah,
put it over their shoulder.
We're assuming that you're practically in a slab of meat situation.
Yeah,
where
yeah.
you're airtight in a sleeping bag.
You're inside
assuming
the wrapping paper
that a
of
mountain
meat.
survivalist man has some kind of. You have
Yeah, but if you're
knives
being
accessible.
hoisted up, like it could fall under you. It could be like on the set. Like, how do you grab it? You know, if you're like, because you have to
But
think
it's
if you're getting put
but
up, you're
that's
like
the
in a
thing,
like
we're
a
not-
cocoon
we're not
of
in a-
sleeping bag.
We're not in an airtight slab of meat situation. We're in a sleeping bag. You could just. And then
Maybe.
it opens.
You're in the wilderness.
He didn't like.
It's not like flat
he
ground.
didn't grab the top of the bag and just like squeeze it tight.
It's from what it
Like a
sounds like. It
trash bag.
sounds like that's what happened, man. I can't give you all the information. I'm
All
just
right.
giving you what he gave me.
Nope, that's fair. You know what? Continue.
So, after being dragged what seemed like 3 hours in the wilderness, yeah, yeah. I don't even know how to like. I'm reading it right now, and I'm like, my God, this
yeah.
man went through it. The smell apparently there was a smell with all of this going on. We're just gonna fast forward. It was overpowering. It was musky and wild. I don't know what that smells like, but it was unlike anything he had ever encountered, he said. Finally, he was dropped onto the ground, and when he freed himself from the bag, he realized he was in a rocky basin and was surrounded by towering figures.
What do you mean figures plural? What do you mean there's more than one?
Well, let me tell you, my man, there was more than one. So, Ostman found himself trapped in a sort of natural enclosure, surrounded by a family of 4 Bigfoot. This is what I mean. Like, this story gets like, it's comedic and also terrifying all at the same time.
If I was, yeah, I mean, I've mentioned on the podcast before.
It doesn't help that I give you all of, like, the worst examples of Bigfoot. Like, I give you like the
Interdimensional.
most
And now
outlandish.
the
Now
fam,
the
bam
fam,
of the-
dude.
I've mentioned before that, when it came to interdimensional Bigfoot, I don't believe in it. We had that whole argument about it. It was a whole thing on this podcast.
I know I shut down
You
completely.
shut down
Yeah.
so hard that episode, and it's just like I'm already feeling myself constricting.
Don't worry. This is one of those stories where I have a hard time
where I'm
believing
just
it
like,
too. If it
"You're
makes you feel
telling me
better.
mommy and daddy sass
Well, I'm glad you said
Oh,
that because
God.
let's go through the description of the big feats. Yeah, I need you to
All right.
move up. Yeah, thank you. There was one, a massive adult male, easily over 8 feet tall, terrifying, by the way, broad-shouldered, my God, can't talk, and covered in dark hair. A slightly smaller adult female, who also appeared to be the caretaker of what will be the 2 young Sasquatches,
Mhm.
who were curious and cautious of
Mm.
Osman himself, right? They didn't attack him, but also didn't let him leave. Like, that's, like, we gotta,
You're
like,
ours now.
yeah, he's like,
Dog,
you're our pet.
if they start talking.
They don't talk. They
Okay,
don't talk.
okay.
I promise. So the man, or the
The man.
the male Sasquatch,
The daddy squatch.
appeared to be in charge of the fam, as you would say, watching Osman's every move. Right.
Hmm.
The female spent most of her time foraging for roots, nuts, vegetation, berries, and seemingly providing food for not just the group but him as
How
well.
long was he here to? Is this just like an after the fact kind of observation, or is this like
He was there for a minute.
Okay, because
He
I was
was
gonna
there
say
for,
like he
like-
just gets dropped out of the sack and he's like, "That's the mom."
No, he was put in
That's-
like almost like a prison made by the big feets.
Is it big feet? Is it Bigfoot's? Bigfoot?
I don't know.
Big feet?
Big feeties. I don't know. But he was like, yeah, it was like a man-made. You know, like if you think of what was the book series that became a movie where
You
It
gotta
was
narrow
like-
it down.
I know. Just give me a second. It's not Hunger Games. What is it? The Divergent series? No,
Oh.
it's not Divergent.
Not Divergent.
The one with it's where they're in a fort. Oh, Maze Runner. Maze Runner.
Maze
It's like that, you know, where it's like, you're getting locked up, and they like put him in some weird jail cell that's like technically just a dugout hole with like a gate prison made out of
I
like trees.
never, I never saw that.
That's crazy. You know,
franchise.
whatever. It's fine. Those movies were goated.
This is why I need my movie podcast.
You
so
do.
I can
You do.
explore movies I've always been supposed to see. But anyway,
I understand. Well, the youngsters were also fascinated by Osman, and they occasionally would get close to him, but they would basically, like animals, retreat if he moved a little too fast. Like, you know,
so
if you
to an
try
extent,
and pet a cat.
they
and
seem
then
somewhat primitive.
Yeah,
At least by a certain amount.
yeah. By definition, they seem pretty, you know, if they're not animals, they seem very like what you would consider maybe cavemen type. Like, you know, like like a little like scatter, and then they just, you know, kind of run around or whatever. Yeah. So Osman actually studied what they looked like pretty closely, and he recounts, you know, physical features of them. He said that they had flat, broad noses and deep set eyes that were, and this is where it comes in, where it's very interesting, where the eyes seemed intelligent but also animalistic. So somewhere in between the two,
Mm.
which is interesting.
I'm sorry, I have to be that guy
It's okay.
because we're having a discussion here.
Yeah. Yeah.
So far, could be a family of gorillas. So
Maybe.
far. I mean, some
8 foot tall gorillas?
I mean, I'm pretty sure they get pretty big. I'm gonna have to.
8 feet tall. That's tall.
Have you ever stood?
I have stood next to a gorilla. Thank you for asking.
Like gorilla height. Literally.
Yeah. Look it up.
Well.
What does it say, Joey? What does it say?
Hold on.
What does it say?
On hind legs.
They don't walk on hind legs, dude.
You're gonna tell me, and I'll put this up for our viewing audience. You're gonna tell me that guy didn't walk on his hind legs
For 3 miles, carrying someone in a sleeping
3
bag.
miles, I'll give you, is a little insane. Sure.
And it's not like
everything
they
gotta be in
swung around in
centimeters?
trees.
Does
They
the
didn't
world
swing
know?
around in trees. They He walked. They walked, man.
I guess. Why does everything got to be in centimeters and inches? I've literally given up because I don't care to do the math in my head. I think if you are searching, this is just a side little comment. I think if you're searching the internet in America, you should get American results.
Well, no, what's funny is that like we're the only people who go by.
I'm well aware of that, and I do think that if we just transferred it all over, and we all did the same
think we should all
measurements,
go by meters and
I agree with you. But because we don't, I want my things to come in the American measurements so that I can just
ask
know
ChatGPT. I'm sure it'll give you the measurement.
Continue the story, and I'll get back to you.
So, anyways. He also said that their communication was a mix of grunts and gestures, almost like sign language, which is pretty interesting, with no clear spoken language. So, like, he couldn't really discern anything that they were saying, but he could clearly tell that they were, like, communicating through hand signals and, like, their grunts and everything, which is, like, a little scary, to be honest.
Yeah, so not quite as
because that means they're like actually like communicating, which is a little scary. You know, like they're not just
they
like
they are 4 to 6 feet.
8 feet. Think of 8 feet. Isaac is 6'6".
Okay. Oh,
Isaac is 6'6".
Okay, that is
8 feet. That's so tall. That is so tall, dude. That's so scary.
For some reason, I think I just forgot what 8 feet looks like.
It's way taller than us. It's a way taller, dude. Significantly taller than we are.
Unnatural.
That is like head is almost touching the roof of our studio.
Oh, God. Oh, my God.
Yeah.
That's so terrible.
And they don't have Gigantopithecus. Like, they're not... They're like, you know, they can barely walk. They gotta be on. Not a lot of people have Gigantopithecus, Joey.
They can't help it.
Look at Andre the Giant. He didn't talk normal.
They couldn't help it. It wasn't their fault.
Neither could the big feet.
But you're telling me that the big feet were less than they were.
They were way more smart. That's crazy. So anyways, I
can't believe you said that. That's crazy. Go ahead.
So they walked upright, which is, again, concerning. 8 feet upright, bipedal.
Yeah.
Their movements were much smoother and stronger than a human's.
Definitely stronger than those.
You know, their bodies were covered in thick hair. Obviously, if you're a Sasquatch, I would assume. I would hope so. But the older male had patches of gray. So this is like quite literally it's like aging. Like there's like a aging process to this man's story. I won't say this is real because I don't know. Mm-hmm. But if it is real, it's interesting because this is like, I think, a defining factor where we have seen in like any of our things mentioning Bigfoot. This is the first time I think we've seen something where it's like, oh, there's signs of aging. Yeah. There's signs of like, you know, there's a hierarchy, family setting. Like there's some interesting things that we have not covered before with anything having to do with Bigfoot. So
this is true.
Though they weren't violent, Ostman felt like a captive.
Well, you know,
naturally,
when you're taken against your will in a sleeping bag,
you got hobo sacked in your own sleeping bag.
Like tonight's roast.
Yeah. And he felt like he needed a way out.
Sure.
Like most humans would in this situation. So,
dude, every title of the next chapter of the story is so good. The Great Escape Plan.
So he came up with a great escape plan, man.
I'm so excited.
So right here, your answer. After 6 days in captivity.
Okay. That's enough time for me to get a lay of the land, get an idea of like the family dynamics.
So after 6 days in captivity, Ostman then, I guess, decided to start planning his escape. So I guess for like 5 days, he was like, maybe.
Well, I would imagine
maybe I'll live with these
2 or 3 days. I think it's fair to be like, a little nervous.
Just
You know, you
yeah.
were taken by 5 8-foot,
4.
4
Yeah.
8-foot beings with a dynamic and gesturing of sign language. I'm pretty sure you'd be like, I'm a
And they're feeding him. Like, that's also something you have to
Oh my
remember.
God.
They are feeding this man, which means they have some level of competence in their mind to be like, bro needs food just like we do.
Mm.
And they give him nuts, berries, like, you know, grass. I don't know. Like, they, you know, whatever they eat, whatever their diet consists of, they're like,
Feeding him
maybe
like a
this man
goat.
wants this. Like, you know, maybe he needs this as well
Yeah.
to survive.
Okay.
Right? So, little nerve wracking because then it's like, oh, bros actually, if they care, then that means they have some level of sentience
Of thought,
that's a little
sentience,
scary, you know?
sure,
Yeah. He realized that the Sasquatches weren't trying to harm him, but they
For
also
now.
weren't just going to let him leave. I mean, as anyone could gather from 6 days of being there with them, right? He had no weapons, as his rifle was, again, left in the sleeping bag, out of reach majority of the time of the situation. So I guess they like a purse, like a woman's purse, they just maybe put it upside down and just like shook him out of the bag or something. And they just threw him, I guess,
Oh my
into
God.
a
Can you imagine
prison.
how
I don't
menacing their voices probably were?
like
Like
yeah.
something really deep.
I
I'm
mean,
imagining.
from some Bigfoot accounts, bro, like they have said like people who are cryptozoologists type people, where they've heard stuff, they've analyzed it like sound wise, which is like I'm an audio guy, so like it always fascinates me with this kind of stuff.
Mhm.
The frequency and range of their vocals cannot be replicated by a human
Hold
because
on.
of how big they are.
Of what?
Like whatever they like.
Are we talking
Speaking,
there was
or not
science
speaking,
done on
but
this family, or just the
in general with just other
science
Bigfoot?
of what Bigfoot likely is?
No, like I'm
'Cause
talking like people
Bigfoot
who have like
has not been
analyzed
confirmed, so that's why I'm like,
people who have analyzed like sounds of what
Sure.
they believe are like, hey,
so
what is
okay,
this?
of
They're
of
like it's not in
believed
the
Bigfoot
range.
encounters
Yeah,
and or caught footage.
and like people
Okay.
who have like spent their whole life.
I was like, who the hell
cryptozoology.
caught a Bigfoot?
Yeah, no, yeah, they weren't caught or anything like that. But because cryptozoology is just the study of undocumented animals.
Mm.
That's like the definite. It's not like, oh, I'm a Bigfoot hunter. Like, no, it's just like people who try to document animals that have not been documented before. It could be like, you know, someone finds for some reason a pterodactyl that's still alive or something, you know, like, or a species of it that hasn't been documented. That's just their job, is just to try and document these animals that have not been documented before.
Kind of like how they think that certain dinosaurs had feathers.
Yeah.
It's like that, right?
That they're more like
Yeah.
bird-like than they are like reptilian or
All right, I'm with
all that
you.
kind of
I'm with
stuff.
you.
So like people have like sent in stuff where like, I'm pretty sure, like, you know, and it's basically just based on people saying like, well, a lot of Bigfoot encounters have happened in like these regions or whatever, and then someone hears like something, they capture it, you know, on video or like, you know, voice memos or whatever, and they send it into these people. There have been people who have been like, well, whatever it was, ain't no human is replicating that because of how like guttural it is, like the range and frequency, you know, being able to go like really, really low to like really, really high. It's like no human can replicate that, period. And whatever it is, it's got to be big, because you can like do math essentially on like, well, if it hits this range of frequency, it has to have lungs to support being able to like have something so deep or something like that, which means they estimate, again, 8 to 10 feet, big ass animal, you know, that has the lung capacity to do stuff like that. So yeah, like you said, hearing something like that, an 8-foot creature standing on 2 legs, not 4, 2 legs, like, that's terrifying.
Yeah.
I can only imagine how scary it would low-key sound, you know, in that.
I probably would shit my pants. I'm
Yeah,
just gonna
and the
be
fact
real.
that they're like essentially doing sign language or whatever, they're like "Hibanikadurgan," and then they just like, you know,
Yeah.
do some crazy
Sure.
sign language stuff, and they're like,
Alright.
and then they just know what they're talking about. Like it's a little terrifying, but we're getting a little off track. Let's go back in.
Oh,
Let's
nice.
go back in. So, so this is where the story gets a little ridiculous, as if none of the story was ridiculous.
This is
before.
where it gets ridiculous. What are you talking about?
So, Osman's opportunity came when he remembered he had a can of snuff, which, if anyone doesn't know what snuff is, it's chewing tobacco, right?
Mhm.
You know, he's basically dipping, so he's just taking it and, you know, shoving it in the back of his mouth. In his belongings,
Also, what an
which he had.
animalistic addiction people had, bro. Like
They were
I mean,
like-
it was like, you ever wanted to chew tar?
Like this
Like,
is the closest you can get, you know. I mean, they were like, smoke cigarettes.
ugh.
Why would I smoke cigarettes when I can just chew it? you
chew
know?
on chew on asphalt.
Yeah,
Like,
like my
oh
God.
god.
So he had that in his belongings on his person, right?
Okay.
He had seen that the large male Sasquatch would watch him closely whenever he would eat or drink or anything like that. You know, they were very observant.
Kind of
And
scary.
deciding to test the creature's curiosity, he offered the can of snuff, the chewing tobacco,
Oh god.
to the big guy.
Okay.
He offered it to the big man, right?
All right. All right.
And let me tell you, he took it.
Mm.
He took it. The male dumped the entire can into his mouth and swallowed it. And I don't know, you know, we watched The Sandlot, right? I don't know if you remember the scene where they went to the fair and the one kid took out the can. It was chewing. It was snuff,
Mhm.
and they all put it in their mouth. They're all chewing on it, and they go on that ride, and they all throw up. They all
Mhm.
throw up.
Mhm.
They didn't swallow it.
Mm.
My man took the whole can and just swallowed it. He just swallowed the whole can worth of snuff,
Oh god.
which turned out to be a terrible decision if you didn't realize.
No.
You know, if for anyone who does chewing tobacco, first of all, you're crazy. But second of all, wow, couldn't imagine swallowing all of it. Within moments, the Sasquatch was coughing, groaning, and clearly, and I just love the way it's put, and clearly in distress. Like he was like, "Oh God, I made a mistake. Like,
What have I done?
Yeah, you go, you know, like he was in full distress, full panic, right?
Okay.
So as the creature stumbled around in discomfort, Ostman grabbed his gear and ran for his life. Now, I will say the story's a little fuzzy because how'd you get out?
yeah,
You know,
weren't there like 3 other ones? Well, I mean, maybe maybe they were just worried about Papa Squatch.
they were like, "Oh no, Dad!" You know, like they're just going wild, right? So he sprinted through the forest. He dodged branches, terrain hazards, and just ran nonstop until he just felt safe, I guess, you know? and after several hours of hiking, because you got to remember, hiking is not easy. You know, a lot of people will be like, "Oh, 3 miles, 5 miles, 10 miles, or whatever." It's just 10 miles, right?
Uh-huh.
You try, like, hiking 10 miles, not straight path. You're just in the middle of the
Oh, yeah, yeah.
wilderness, and you're hiking hours, like, and running hours, hiking.
The level of exhaustion.
Like, your body would just be done. And 6 days on a diet that's completely different than your normal
Of
diet, you
goat
know,
food.
of pretty much of goat food. You know, they're feeding them like cattle, you know, like after all of that, he found a river and like we learned in Alone, like our last episode, he found a river and he followed it back towards civilization because everything, as we know, revolves around water. So
This was in the 1920s.
24. Yep. So,
Hmm.
yeah, that's the gist of the story. Now, like I said, if you guys want the full story, and like it was the full story that was pretty much told by him, that was just documented by someone else, you can go to SasquatchAlberta.com, which is like a website of just a whole bunch of Bigfoot and Sasquatch encounters. You can find it under like the classic stories tab, because this is actually one of the oldest written documented stories that we actually have, that's like a fully coherent story from the person himself,
Yeah.
not just like hearsay. So if you guys want the whole story, there's a lot more stuff that happened, but for time's sake, I didn't write everything. Tried to make it, a little bit funny, because when bro tells it, he's not laughing. He's, he's terrified,
Yeah.
like it's a
I would be
terrifying
too if I was in
encounter.
his situation. I don't blame the guy.
Yeah. So, when we come back on part 2 of this right now, we'll dive into how we're feeling about this whole story, because it's pretty out there, to say the least.
I believe every word.
I hope so. All right. Yeah.
Broider. Well, returning for part 2 in this discussion we're having about the Albert Ostman
Kidnapping, I
kidnapping.
guess.
I would like to say it's a very intriguing story. It is. We're going to be discussing a little bit.
I will say, for someone who believes in, Bigfoot and all this stuff, it's pretty far-fetched. I mean, there's a lot. There's a lot.
I have things about this, and I don't know exactly what some of your notes say, but if I could maybe lean into maybe a personal opinion on the truth or what is it? False or
skeptical side.
yeah. Skeptical or non-skeptical side of this argument, I would like to say this is more obviously to me believable than interdimensional Bigfoot.
That's right.
I understand the concept, and I did over-exaggerate interdimensional Bigfoot at the time, because when I thought about interdimensional, I thought it's this Bigfoot who like cuts reality open and steps to a new one. Like, I thought it was that dramatic.
Yeah.
And it's not. I understand that it's more like he's kind of just everywhere or something. like
I mean, there's some. I will say there are some theories about Bigfoot where I'm like, that's a lot. There's a lot, but at the same time, there's also some where I'm like, it sounds far fetched, but
well, that's what
if you think about certain, because and this is like going back, we did the Fermi paradox, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, if
Shameless
these things
plug,
are
check out the
out
Fermi
here,
paradox.
yeah, chillcast.
Chillcast.
If you look at the Fermi paradox, and the whole thing was like, well, if these things exist, why don't we see them, right? And then you go into a whole bunch of other, research and other books and other, eyewitness accounts, secondary accounts, all this stuff. There's a lot of UFO stuff that happens in the same areas as Bigfoot. There's a lot of like weird, people haven't found bones, right?
Mm-hmm.
People find footprints, and then the footprints just disappear into nowhere, right? And, all that stuff sounds, far-fetched, so it sounds a little like, all right, it's a little fringe, a little woo-woo type of stuff,
Yeah.
But then you think, let's just say if aliens are physical, right? They're not, spiritual or anything like that. They're like physical, coming from another planet. Who's to say Bigfoot's just not like a... And when I explain it, you're going to be like, buddy. But
I'm remembering
who's...
our old conversation.
I mean, who's to say...
that Bigfoot?
When you look at Star Wars, right?
Mm-hmm.
Chewbacca, his race, they're technically aliens. They're from another world.
Is it true?
They're from Kashyyyk. You know, like
Wow, you know where they're from?
yeah, I do because I love Star Wars.
I
Man.
mean, I love Star Wars. I don't think I
But-
could ever told you where Chewbacca was from.
But yeah, you know, like it. Like I said, it sounds far fetched, but I am saying, like, you know, if you think of it as the, you know, people say interdimensional Bigfoot or alien type, like, who's to say it's just not another race? I mean, people believe in the reptilians. People believe in all these, you know, the grays, all these other, you know,
If it
random,
helps,
like,
if it helps,
who's to say there's not just a furry race of
I think that
alien.
the people who believe in reptile people are also just batshit crazy as well. So
Yeah, I mean, there's
I'm
some
not.
pretty scary-
I'm
there's
very
some-
inclusive in my
Yeah,
people are bullshit. But
understandable.
that to be said, though,
And like,
Actually-
I want to preface this, I'm not saying I believe in that. I'm just saying that, like, if you are going to look at it in that logic,
Well,
I
no.
mean, you know, it's like, okay, I mean, if there are multiple races of alien, it's not just
Yeah.
like, you know, gray little men or whatever. There's
Well,
multiple.
what I wanted to mention, though, which is actually probably something I would imagine is a little unexpected, is I could see this situation happening
Yeah.
more than I can, Chewbacca coming down.
Yeah.
I can see
This feels more physical.
this
feels like a
physical.
very,
It feels like a story that, like, even if he was hallucinating and it wasn't really big feet or whatever, it could have been wild animals that took him. I mean, I also was thinking that I'm pretty sure it's scientifically backed. I know it's religiously backed, but I think it's also scientifically backed that we used to live longer as humans. We used to be taller. We didn't look like we do now. And so, not to be that guy, but we don't know what animals could have looked like
yeah.
back then,
I
or
mean,
if that
same thing
kind
is
of
we
animal,
don't even know what dinosaurs look like.
Exactly.
You know, like you said,
and
with like the feathers
Yeah.
and everything. Like
And it's
maybe
kinda like,
dinosaurs
what
look
is
like
it?
big ass chickens.
What
You
is
know,
it?
we don't know.
The Mariana Trench.
Yeah.
Is that it? Like the
Yeah.
deepest part of the ocean? Is that it? We keep-
Miles deep.
We find
Miles.
things in the ocean that we never knew even existed.
We
this
find
day.
things that we thought were extinct millions of years ago,
Yeah,
and they're still alive
exactly,
now. You
exactly.
know, like
And so all I'm saying is I still can't give you that I can believe in Bigfoot.
that's fair.
It's
that's
just
fair.
it's a step too far for me. But the story of Albert Ostman, I don't necessarily think is impossible.
Yeah.
I think there are animals, especially like gorillas, that are very intelligent enough that they can communicate via sign language. They can, have dynamic roles in their family where
They
there's
have
a
ways
leader,
of communicating. They have
communicating.
all that.
I'm not necessarily claiming
But then
this
you
is
just-
gorillas.
yeah.
I'm just saying there are animals that are capable of this kind of fact. Now, being 8 foot tall
yeah,
and
that's-
lifting a man by his sleeping bag is definitely scary.
yeah.
It's definitely like another step in the oh, I don't even know what to make of that.
And see, I'm glad you said that because a lot of people, and this is for any, and again, I say paranormal. Paranormal is just like things that we just don't understand,
Yeah.
right? It
Yeah.
has nothing to do with ghosts, has nothing to do with any of that. It's just like strange occurrences and phenomena
Mm-hmm.
that we just can't explain, right? A lot of people, when it comes to any paranormal, encounter phenomena, all that kind of stuff, a lot of people like to give, like what you said right now, a lot of people would just be like, well, it was a gorilla. Easy.
Mhm.
Just a hominid gorilla. And somehow they were like, hey, this guy looks cool. And then they just kidnapped him, right?
Yeah.
But it doesn't explain all of it. And like you said, it's like, okay, believe it. It could be gorilla. And then you get to 8 foot tall. And then you're like, huh.
Well, this is why I
You
also
know, like,
mentioned when I started, though,
interesting,
that we don't look the way we always did. And things,
yeah.
even though people like to get really
Could be
angry
early
about
human.
evolution
Could be early human.
and stuff like that,
Yeah.
it is genuine knowledge that things evolve.
Yeah.
People
Whether it's Darwinism's microevolution theories
Things
or just
evolve,
like
yeah.
we have just evolved
And
over
so,
time to look different,
for all we know, this
Could be a caveman.
it
We
could
don't,
be,
you don't know.
it could
You
just be
don't-
something that didn't evolve with the rest of nature.
And they have.
That's why I'm saying it doesn't
just
have to
been-
necessarily be a gorilla. It could
Yeah.
be some other species or something. But I don't know. I guess it's hard for me to say Bigfoot because at the end of the day, it's like, what are we talking about? What is a Bigfoot?
Well, and like we've talked about that before on and off cam. I mean, every single culture has a reference of a wild man.
Yes.
I mean, in Asia, and you have in China and everything, they talk about wild men.
This is true.
And then you're like, oh, well, they don't say Bigfoot, but then it's like, okay, read the description. Big ass, like hairy, bipedal person looking guy,
Mm-hmm.
Super strength, super tall, like all this stuff. And you're like, oh, interesting. Then you got like things as far as like the Epic of Gilgamesh, one of the first like known written historical legends where it's like, okay, you have Enkidu. And how is he
What a great
described?
name.
How is he described? He's described as a wild man with fur everywhere. And he has unhuman strength, and he ends up, he's more beast than man, but ends up becoming friends with Gilgamesh, which means if he became friends with him, he had to have some sort of a not a moral compass, but a intelligent part of him to be able to become friends with a man.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like you have these stories everywhere. And I mean, this is in British Columbia, Canada. Canada has their own wild men, their own Sasquatch, their own Bigfoot. Us right here. I mean, like where we live.
Is Canada
You
the
have-
most Sasquatch?
I think
related place?
I believe so. I think they have a lot of
Mm.
freaking Sasquatch. But if we're not in first, we're in second. Northern California. I mean, our cryptid of the state is Bigfoot.
Mm.
I mean, that is our cryptid, But you have Northern California. That's where, in I believe it was the 50s to 70s. Don't quote me. I know it's in between that range. I know that's like, 20 years difference. But from 50s to 70s, I mean, the term Bigfoot was coined here. Bigfoot was not a thing until then. It was either Sasquatch or it was the wild men or all that kind of stuff, But we have the most famous documented footage of quote unquote a Bigfoot, the Patterson-Gimlin film. That was shot in Northern California, close to Yosemite.
True.
At Bluff Creek, So it's like there's a lot going on, and you don't have to believe that it's an interdimensional thing. You don't have to believe it's an alien. You don't have to believe it's,
Yeah.
It could be an early hominid. It could be
I think maybe I should
prehistoric
rephrase-
person,
I think I should rephrase my belief in Bigfoot, because I hear what you're saying, and I think it's not necessarily that I don't believe in Bigfoot. I think it's more that it's like, to me, what's the big deal? Because very specifically, because if we all have our own like version, our own story, our own cryptid, our own tale or legend, then at the end of the day, this could just very well be some kind of beast, animal, man thing that's out there.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, if everyone has one, then it becomes less of what makes Bigfoot so captivating, because people love the idea of Bigfoot. People who aren't informed about Bigfoot find Bigfoot intriguing because they're like, oh, well, that's ridiculous. There's no
it's
way.
like a staple of a town. I
Yeah.
mean, like people, there's
People are like, this is just a legend. It's a
Sasquatch
thing out there. Like the Lake
festivals
Ness
and all that,
monster.
yeah.
Loch Ness. Is it Lake Ness or Loch Ness?
Loch Ness.
Loch
yeah.
Ness. It's stuff like that where they find something to believe in or hold on to. Whereas I think it's more so that I agree with you that if there is encounters of wild men all over, then to me it's
Throughout
just
history too.
throughout
It's not
history.
like it just came out of the
then to me
70s
it's
or
kind
whatever.
of just
yeah.
like dragons, because I believe in dragons.
yeah.
But to me, dragons aren't a big deal, because at the end of the day, we're not seeing them fly around in the sky
Yeah,
anymore.
Yeah.
We got like little bearded dragon guys who walk around and
Mm-hmm.
just eat crickets. Like,
I mean, I think what it is, and this is just coming from someone who does like, I would say do more. I'm like a hobbyist investigator.
sure.
You know, I don't like sit here and be like, oh
Mhm.
yeah, I'm investigating this for money or anything. I just enjoy the topic, so
Yeah.
I just do research, right? You know, on my free time. I think a lot of what the fascination is, and this is just coming from an outside person who is, I've never had an experience with Bigfoot. I've never had any of that. You know, I'm not like someone who could be like, I know for a fact this is real. I don't know. I'm going to say like there's obviously something, because if every
Mhm.
single culture is talking about something that describes the same exact thing, there's obviously got to be some truth to it. It's not like it's just, you know, there for no reason. I think the thing that captivates people is the lack of physical evidence
Yeah.
after the fact. Like, well, if it's real, where are the bones?
Mhm.
Plain and simple. Like, where are bones? If we haven't found the bones, then what is it? Right?
It's the mystery of
You
it
know,
all.
where's
you know?
the, you know, where's the fur? Where's the
Mhm.
this? Where's the that? You know, like,
Oh
where,
man, you just
you
made
know,
you totally just reminded me of a story that we have searched for a future episode. Please look forward to our season finale chat, because
oh,
there's a
yes.
411
Yes.
case in
There
there that
is.
we're going to talk about that is so good and
Yeah.
so like what the fuck kind
Yeah.
of. Oh man, sorry, you just reminded me of that one with
Yeah.
the clothes. I don't know.
Oh, yes. Yes. Yeah.
Crazy
That
stuff.
one's wild.
Crazy stuff.
You know, but there are,
Anyway.
and maybe one of these days we'll do like an actual like deep dive on like maybe Bigfoot cases and everything, like we are gonna do on the 411, the missing
Mhm.
411 stuff. But you know, there are cases, and I'm not even gonna attempt to say the name of the actual researcher, because there's so many, I'm probably gonna get it wrong. But there was an account where someone was like, I'm talking thousands upon thousands of feet in elevation up in the mountains. They went to a pond. They found this fur or whatever up there. They took it back and they analyzed it. And I don't know if I've like talked about it on the pod. I feel like I might have mentioned it once or twice before, but
Sounds somewhat familiar.
it came up 99% human.
Yeah, you have mentioned
Not
this.
100, 99%. And this is a place where people had claimed that there are wild men out here in this area 100%. And if I'm not mistaken, it might be because there are a couple times this has happened where people have sent in fur or like actual physical evidence for research,
Mm-hmm.
and then the evidence mysteriously disappears or gets lost. And I want to say this was one of those cases where they found out, they got the results, they asked for the fur back, and they're like, oh, we don't know where it is. And then that's where, you know, the conspiracy side comes in, where it's like, well, what do you mean?
Yeah.
Like, what do you know, like, what are you hiding? You
Mhm.
know, and there's stuff even going within the missing 411 stuff, which we won't dive into because we do have a whole episode that's going to be, you know,
it's gonna be so
coming
good,
up.
chat.
It's going to be good. We did so much research on this one. But there are some where people think that there is a hidden agreement that has been all the way since, I think it was Theodore Roosevelt was the one that made the national park like laws or whatever to like keep like to preserve, you know, certain like parts of the US's forestry and everything.
Mm-hmm.
There are talks that people think that people very much know that there are Bigfoot and Sasquatch and everything in our forests, and that they don't say anything because it would have to then go through like, okay, well, now we got to go through nature preservation laws. Now we got to, because then it's a species involvement. It's this, it's that.
That makes. I was
We can't,
literally
you
just
know.
gonna ask, like, what would be the big deal if?
Yeah,
we
and then that
confirmed it, but I
would
can
take
understand that makes sense.
you know, would close national parks down to the
Yeah.
public, because then it would be a matter of like, oh, this is an endangered species, you know,
Mm-hmm.
all that kind of stuff. And there were a lot of involvements with like loggers in places where they would talk about like, yo, there's Bigfoot sightings and everything out here, even like killings, all that kind of stuff. Where even like, no, yeah, like this is out here. But you cannot say anything because if you did, it would shut down our logging. We wouldn't be able
Yeah.
to then cut down trees. We wouldn't be able to do any of this stuff because then it would be a matter of preserving a species. And so there's a lot of stuff with that where a lot of people do think like maybe the National Park Services do know about some of this stuff out there. Same thing with like, I don't know if you've heard a lot of stuff about like feral people and all that stuff, people who have just
We've talked about it.
continued to live out, on the land and do all this stuff where it's like the same thing. Like, yeah, we know this stuff is out here, but then if we were to make it known publicly, then we would have to then, either close things down. Then if you close things down, then that means money issues. You wouldn't be getting people in tourist wise. You wouldn't be, doing any of that stuff. So there are many factors where it's like, even if it is just like a endangered species, or if it's like actual like early hominids or early humans or whatever, then it's like there's a whole thing that goes into that, law wise and government wise and all that kind of stuff. So it's interesting. There's a lot of stuff that goes into
that is interesting.
But let's go into some of the reasons why people are either very skeptical about this story,
yes,
or why
please.
they're believers of this story, right?
I'd like to hear how some people's opinions differ or compare to mine.
So it is interesting. I will say, after this happened, he didn't tell people about it. This was not like he came back to civilization. He's like, oh my God, you guys have to find out about all this stuff.
Well, probably with good reason, you know, like imagine how it sounds.
Exactly.
Imagine how it sounded to me just listening to it now. I mean, however many years later this is from the original happening.
So I will say this was a make or break moment. This was like you either this leads credibility to the story or this makes you completely skeptical. This story was not shared until 1957, which was over 30 years after this had happened to him.
Do you know how old he was in 24?
He was in his 30s, his early 30s, yeah.
So this is like 57?
So he's like...
This is like, he's in his 60s, 70s.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So and it would come, now it's coming across like an old man telling a fable.
Exactly.
To the,
exactly. So there, that's where it kind of makes or breaks people's opinion about it, He claimed he kept quiet about it all this time because he didn't think anyone would believe him, and that, I mean, in the 1920s, people were hard, bro. I mean, like, like these mountain men were like... They were like 40. They were looking 40 years old at like 17, like they were hard ass guys, like they, and it's like, if you go out here trying to claim all this stuff, it would be interesting, but, when interest in Bigfoot actually like started growing, like all the sightings started growing, he finally decided like this was like the actual time to tell his tale, which again, the skeptical side of me, I'm like, could be just, hey, I got a story to tell too, guys.
Yeah,
like oh yeah,
I want
like,
my
I got
10 minutes of fame kind of thing. Another reason why people didn't believe hold on, was it the Irving family?
Yes, yeah,
with
Jeff.
Yeah. Oh my God, I got the name right?
Yeah.
Oh, dude.
Yeah.
Look at me go. Yeah. It's the same thing. A lot of people thought it was just a cash grab, like an attraction. Yeah. Like, do you want to come to the house?
And then you do more research and you realize, like, bros, like, quite literally were losing more money than they were gaining,
there was
after
no
all
reason to try and do that.
They were in the middle of nowhere. There ain't no way they're, which, that's crazy. See, it's a good callback, bro. That's crazy. So I will say skeptical views, other viewpoints and everything, because that's like the make or break one. That's either going to solidify like, hey, maybe this did happen or it didn't, right?
Mm-hmm.
But going into the skeptical views, a lot of people think, again, the long delay in reporting, raises questions about, credibility, which I definitely understand. 2, there is no physical evidence. There is no photos, footprints, remains, anything like that.
That's tough.
So, and then the third one, which I personally don't believe, only because when you read his story, you read his background. Some people believe that the isolation and exhaustion may have led to hallucination or exaggeration. This one, I'm sorry. That one doesn't make any sense to me because it's like, first of all, how are you going to hallucinate getting dragged 3+ miles in the wilderness and then being set up in a camp for 6 days with big feet?
Yeah.
You know, to me, that one, you know, that's like the least strongest argument out of the whole thing. No amount of exhaustion is going to make you hallucinate me looking at you and being like, that's an 8-foot Bigfoot.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, that's just not, you know,
I
there are certain
agree
things where
with
I'm like,
you.
that just doesn't
I
make
think
sense.
it's
You know,
not fair to. I think if you're trying to claim hallucination or exhaustion, I think that's almost more ridiculous
it's
to
a cop
believe
out. Yeah.
than believing that he just made this shit up.
Yeah.
I
Like,
think because
yeah.
it doesn't make any sense. Why would he tell a story that's true about these 4 family
Yeah. A whole
Sasquatches
family of Sasquatch. Yeah.
carrying him, feeding him, like Planet of the Apes type?
Yeah. Yeah. Essentially, that's what it reminds me of. It's a very
Yeah.
Planet of the Apes type of story. And 1924, again, you know, if you're going to deep dive into this, Planet of the Apes wasn't a thing.
No.
There was nothing that you could have based this story on in media that was
Not
going
even when
to
he
give you
not
this
even when he
type
told
of-
his story.
Yeah,
The Planet of the
50s,
Apes came
dude.
out in 68.
Yeah,
So-
it's like there was nothing out here that could have given him that idea of a story this crazy. It's almost one of those, like, it's too crazy, too fake. It is like quite literally like
Yeah.
Occam's razor, you know, the simplest explanation is the explanation. This is the most simple explanation because I don't know what other explanation you can give.
I think the most
It
simple,
makes it, you know.
the simplest explanation is that it is bullshit. To be
Yeah,
fair.
that's what I mean.
I
It's either
think-
complete
because, again,
bullshit
why
or
it's so stupid to say hallucination, because that's implying that you believe something happened, and that would imply that you believe. I'm not saying it didn't happen, but that to say hallucination or exhaustion is to imply you believe that 30 odd years ago this man was in the woods for 6 days with some kind of survival. What's it called?
almost like a mental break. Like, what, bro had a mental
Emergency
break while he was
emergency,
out there?
like
Yeah,
a survival emergency. So you have to believe at least that this man was in the wilderness, that he had an emergency, and that he came out barely, you know?
Yeah.
And to
Yeah.
believe that and then claim that it just doesn't make any sense. That's a stupid argument.
And you have to remember, 1924, I mean, we went into what he was before. He was a logger. He was an outdoorsman. He was a miner. This is not new to him. Him being out in the wilderness is not new.
Maybe
He has lived his whole life in the wilderness doing this stuff.
This is a 411 case.
And he just
Maybe-
made it out.
Maybe because a lot of times we're going to get to this on our 411 case.
I mean,
but
there's
just a
one
little,
case where a kid came back and he was 11 miles away from
one
the
thing,
campsite.
that I
and he
wanted
was
to bring up
completely
was
unscathed.
some of the stories happened to people, like that one we told on a previous episode already. He was a survival expert. He was a hunter. He knew what he was doing. He wouldn't have just disappeared with no way home. Like, it doesn't make
Exactly.
any sense why he would
Exactly. He's someone
vanish.
who knows the dangers of the wilderness. He knows how to get out.
just
He's been through some
hallucinations
shit.
and exhaustion. Bad argument.
Yeah,
Bad
yeah,
argument.
that's probably the least where I'm like, no,
Yeah.
I don't believe that at all. But if we go on the believer's point of view of this story,
Yeah, convince me.
one, his detailed descriptions of Sasquatch anatomy and behavior are consistent with other reports from indigenous stories, indigenous tribes, and modern sightings.
Okay.
Right? So the 8 foot tall, pretty intelligent as far as having intelligent speech, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You know, inhuman strength to be able to carry someone in a sleeping bag for 3+ miles. Now, I will say, like, something that does get to me as far as like I call bullshit. How do you know if you're inside the sleeping bag you were roughly carried for 3 miles in the wilderness? That is one for me where I'm like,
Yeah.
that could have been just like a guesstimation. But at the same time, it's like, I mean, if you didn't see anything that was going on until he dumped you out like a woman's purse, you know, like it's kind of hard to tell how far you went.
It doesn't
but,
make too much sense.
You know, but going back to the believer's point of view, 2, his account of family structure and social behavior is remarkably complex for a fabricated story. So it's like,
Wait, hold on. His account of family structure?
yeah, just
Do
the
they
structure
mean
of the family
in
of Bigfoot.
animalistic behavior or Sasquatch behavior, or
Well,
in general? Because
I just mean in general being able to, like, out of everything you could make up about Bigfoot,
oh, I guess
it's a very
complex.
complex thing to just come off the dome with, you know?
Okay.
I mean, it'd be different. It's like, oh, I got kidnapped by a family of feral people. It's like, well, you clearly know they're feral people. You know, they're people, you know, so like you don't know how they interact. But I mean, as far as like the family dynamic, it is a stretch to say like someone just off the dome is like, hey, not only did I see Sasquatch, but there's a family of them.
There was a dad.
And there was a dad, a mom. Yeah, like, and being able to distinguish all of them, and like they have their own physical character traits, all that kind of stuff. It is a little far-fetched. And then the last one I have here is the idea that Sasquatches might curiously observe humans rather than attacking them fits within other alleged encounters. Because, and this is coming just from someone who has done a lot of research and has, like, you know, read a lot of documents about this stuff. Bigfoot don't tend to hurt people. It's not really a, like, I'm territorial like humans are, so I gotta, like, you know, mark my territory by, like, scaring the shit out of these people. You know, like, there's not a lot of cases where Bigfoot are out here physically attacking people, you know, harming people, all that stuff. And again, he came out with a story in the 50s, but this happened in 24. So it's like there ain't a lot of accounts to, allegedly, you know, there's not a lot of accounts to base all that off of, you know. So it does kind of fit in with other, you know, stories of Bigfoot encounters and all that. But he's also the first person that I know personally, like, from reading stuff that has been kidnapped by one. So I don't,
that
so I
is
don't know.
Kind of a step away from the normal
just a little
Bigfoot
bit,
stories.
I will say, OSTMAN'S story does remain to be one of the most unique and detailed Sasquatch encounters in history, like, to date. You know, so that's why he is
it
found
regarded
under
by the
classics.
Sasquatch community as, like,
everybody knows his story. Yeah, so it is the pretty, just because it's out there. I mean, it's like, everybody knows about this story type of thing. It's like the Patterson-Gimlin film. If you say that, anyone who
every Sasquatch enthusiast knows about Albert.
I would say so. Yeah, I would say so.
That's interesting.
But if true, why did the family take him? You know? Like,
this is a question I had.
Because, I mean, was he being studied? Was he tested? Was he kept as a guest? Was he maybe, and some people theorize, like,
the snuff is also weird.
Yeah.
The snuff is weird.
Because to me, that gives a lot of, like, animal qualities. Like, very, like, what's this in the tin? Like,
yeah.
Like, and then you just
I see it
take
both
it,
ways.
you know,
this is coming from skeptic and non-skeptic part of me. The snuff is probably one of the weirdest parts of the story to me, because to me, skeptic-wise, I think it's kind of the dumbest, weirdest fact to include in the story.
But at the same time, it's so dumb. Like, how would it not be?
Non-skeptic part of me agrees with you. It's a very animalistic thing to have, like, some kind of somewhat primitive, if we're being real, creature finding something edible, eating it without even thinking twice, and then facing the repercussions. That makes sense. That's believable.
Yeah.
But it's weird.
Well, and, like, to me, it's like, it's so weird that, like, how do you make it up? You know, like,
Yeah.
your first thing, because he says he had a rifle there. It was in his sleeping bag. Could have easily shot him. He didn't,
Yeah.
and it's like his escape plan revolved around it eating chewing tobacco. Like, like to me,
Mhm.
I'm just like, that's too odd of a story to not somewhat have to be true. Like it's just too
Yeah.
odd. It's too odd to talk about it and then just be like, nah, like it's odd. It is very odd. Now, I will say some people believe that, if Bigfoot is indeed early human, early hominid, all that kind of stuff, like a little caveman type, then maybe the species needs humans in order to keep their lineage alive. Like maybe maybe
What
it
does
was
that mean?
kidnapped for
What, for mating?
breeding. I mean, because you have to think too. I mean, yeah, there's the human aspect, but there is also the animal aspect, and if the genes are close enough to know that, like, that
Oh
could,
God, I didn't even think about that. That's
keep the lineage alive,
awful.
you know? I'm not saying it's great, but
Poor
I am
Albert.
saying, if that is the case, I mean, that does kind of make somewhat sense, if they are, like, intelligent enough to know, like, hey, our breed is dying out, like, we got to do what we got to do to, keep our people alive. I mean, same thing with, people who have slaves, like back in the early days and everything. It's like, hey, we got to continue our lineage. So, I mean, unfortunately, by like any means possible, people did some, terrible things in order to keep their line alive, So it's, I mean, there's so much history of people interbreeding, stuff like that. Like, hey, we got to keep our bloodline like within the family, as sick as that sounds. Like, I mean, there were kings that were having sex with either their sisters or
Yeah, no,
daughters
I
or
get what you're saying.
cousins or,
I
stuff
just
like
that
that.
yeah,
I
I
mean,
didn't even think about that being.
I mean, I'm just thinking on the spectrum of like, if it is,
Yeah, yeah.
you got to cover all bases. I mean, that
This is also
could be
that,
likely,
in my opinion, would assume then that they are far more even. Yes, it could be primitive, but I think it's still far more intelligent
Yeah, it's
to
intelligent. It's an
take that in
intelligent.
mind. Keep that in mind.
But I mean, they're also intelligent enough to know, like, hey, we got to feed this guy.
True, but I
we
think
gotta.
food and water is a bit more
But what animal does that
instinctual.
for other animals that aren't
I
their
think it's been
own
known
race
if
of animal?
I think it's more common when it comes to raising something. So, because I've heard, there's different stories of different species of animal who find a cub or like a baby version. I couldn't think of any other word other than cub.
No, makes sense.
I feel so stupid. I can't think of another calf, but that's a cow.
Just a baby, just a baby,
Just a baby animal where there's like a motherly instinct where it's like, oh, this creature
Yeah.
is in need of
But
help.
they kidnapped him.
This is why I'm saying
This
that
is not
this
like they
doesn't
just
fit that
found
description.
him. They didn't find him.
That's why I'm saying there is a
Yeah.
bit more intellect there
Yeah.
because it isn't quite. Well, I wouldn't describe it as what I just explained because it's more so.
Yeah.
They
There's
found
definitely
it, yeah.
something there.
This isn't a motherly
yeah.
nature thing by any means.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, it sounds like from the story that it was the male that picked him up and took him there.
Yeah.
So it's like, I mean, males tend to be more
Hey,
aggressive than
low key.
than female.
Part of me
like,
would not be surprised if the dad Sass just was like, "Oh, I found some grub for the fam," and he picks him up, takes him to the cave.
And the mom was like, "We can't
dumps
eat him. Look at him, like he's skin and bones. We need to feed him some nuts and berries, like."
That, or maybe he was trying to find a pet for the kids.
Maybe
he was like a dog to them.
He was like
maybe
"Look
they
at this."
saw him as more
They
primitive
probably
than
saw him as a naked mole rat because he
Yeah.
has no hair or anything.
Yeah.
So
could
like
be.
it's a Rufus, bro. It's our kid's play friend, like.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I do not know. It's a little scary, but you kind of just have to ask yourself, I guess, are there similar abduction stories to this? I mean, I've never heard one. So it's a little.
I don't think I've heard of anything quite like this before. I
No.
mean, the story believability, I would say, is just about as believable as Jeff the mongoose
Yeah.
because of who's giving the story and how much evidence they have.
Yeah. Even though it sounds ridiculous,
I'll
it
give
is
you,
very.
though, I'll give you that there are more accounts of Jeff that are not the Irving family.
Yeah.
That gives
Yeah,
them
yeah.
a bit more credit.
And like big people. I
Yeah.
mean, like paranormal investigators, like
That gives them a lot
parapsychologists.
more. This one's
I mean-
tougher because this happened 30
Yeah.
something years prior to it coming to the public.
Yeah.
So
I don't know, man. I got no
I guess,
idea.
I guess the question for us is, do you believe his story? And do I?
I mean, I think something happened. I don't know. I'm not going to say that like all of it word for word how he described it happened, but I think like there's no way you can make this whole thing up. It's like it's too crazy to be like, nah, this whole thing was just an old kook, like in the wilderness coming up with something. Like I don't believe that. I think there's too many details that are just so outlandish where I'm like, nah.
Yeah,
like,
the snuff
like,
part is
nah.
getting
Like,
me. I mean, all of it's getting me. Honestly, the sleeping bag and the snuff are the weirdest parts. Because an animal taking you into its home, feeding you, watching you, stalking you, that makes sense to me, ironically. But I mean,
yeah.
the 8-foot tall sleeping bag trip and the
Well, and like you said, like there is like a stalking nature because he did notice a lot of things in his camp, like food and stuff going missing.
Mhm.
Like it wasn't
That's
like
true.
it wasn't like just
That's
out
true.
of the blue he gets picked up and like grabbed. I mean, it's like, huh, I could have swore I had this like
swore-
fish,
Where'd
like
my
out here, like
alphabet soup go?
yeah, like there was part of it where like it sounds like there was a little bit of stalking nature to it,
Yeah.
like that there was like a I like this guy. Let's take him to camp, and they just.
I think I'm pretty much with you. I think based on his background of being a survivalist, I think it's fair to say that he very well probably did experience some kind of
Yeah.
emergency situation in nature.
Well, and like from what I read too, after this, things didn't change. He continued to go outdoors. He was an avid outdoorsman still.
Mm.
He took a lot more precautions and everything. But from what I could tell, from what I read, didn't stop him. I mean, like I said, men were just built different back then to just be like, all right, I'm still going to just continue to live out here, even though this life-changing event happened to me, so.
Yeah, dude, these days our species is so
We're
doomed.
soft, man. We're soft.
We would have this
If
situation,
this happened
right?
to someone now, they
You
wouldn't
get-
even
you
step
get
foot in the woods.
Stuck in a sleeping bag, you get carried away to a cave or some kind of home of these creatures. You get dumped out like a purse. And then you know what the first thing our generation would do? For our audio listeners, I'm pretending to film it.
Yeah.
They'd pull out their phones.
Yeah.
And they would immediately try and get a photo. They would immediately try and be like, oh, look at this. That's crazy.
Yeah.
And
When I'm like,
when it's like,
how the
hey,
hell do I get out of here?
Hey,
You
buddy,
know?
yeah, maybe we worry about the situation at hand.
Yeah.
These 8-foot monsters that took me into
Hairy
their-
monsters. They're out
Yeah.
here speaking any Ebonics and freaking sign language or something. I don't know, dude.
Well, this story was very intriguing. I'll give you that, and much more believable,
Yeah.
ironically, than interdimensional for me. So I hope you can take that for what it is.
And they all stepped through a portal and left. And I like or they just got picked up by a flying saucer and just flew on away, dude. Like the Jetsons, just fat, like fit like all four of them in a small ass spaceship and just flew on out, dude.
Oh my god, dude. Yeah, this was great. I enjoyed this a lot. This was a fun weirdness week topic. Well done, my friend.
Thank you. Well, we will leave you guys with one question, even though probably going to be left with many questions after this one. But our main one is, like we asked each other, have y'all ever heard anything about this before? Because
Yeah.
if you have, please send it in, because I am so interested to know if there's more cases out here.
Yeah, for the love of God, I'm gonna take the reign here for just a moment, chat. I would like to say, that's Brent. Here I am. I'd like to just say I'm so sick and tired of y'all not answering our questions. We have a question at the end of the episode for every one of you, and they're all specific to the episode. I want to have. We know that there's at least 25 listeners consecutively every week, at least on YouTube.
Or it's just one person listening
That
25
many
times.
I like to think not. So out of those 25 that keep coming back, please, for the love of God, just answer our damn question. We want to have some freaking engagement. Brent's nodding. He's agreeing with me. We want some engagement with you guys. We want to talk to you. We want to have some fun and engage and have some stories. God,
Yeah,
you guys
dude,
missed out on Christmas, Halloween. There were so many cool moments. We had,
and we can't even do an Ask Me Anything if you guys don't ask us anything.
Exactly.
So, we have so much more planned, especially for Patreon. So, but we can't do it without your guys' help. So,
Yes.
Any engagement really does make a lot of difference for us, I'm not going to sit here and force you guys to like and subscribe and review and, all that kind of stuff. But, the little engagement we do get, like, it makes us feel good,
Yeah.
We still don't have sponsors. We don't have anything like that. We're doing this for free still, and it's currently 11:08 p.m. and we got to be at work at 8. We're tired, but we enjoy doing this, and any little thing you guys comment or do or say, we take it to heart. It makes us feel like we're not just talking to ourselves out here. So
yeah.
if you guys have time, please comment, answer the questions. Not the questions, at least just be like, hey, you guys suck, or hey,
Yeah,
you
I'll
guys are
take
good.
hate comments.
Any comment is a good comment at this point.
Yeah.
So we love you, we appreciate you, and this has been a very odd yet funny episode of the Woodsman podcast. But we're your hosts, Brent Murphy
and Joey Rucker.
And stay safe out in the wilderness, guys.
The Woodsman podcast is actively reading and responding to anything and everything on Instagram and our email.
If you have any questions, comments, or concerns about the show, or would like to possibly be on the show, you can email us at thewoodsmanpod@gmail.com.
Make sure to keep up with all things Woodsman related on Instagram and X at WoodsmanPod.
Don't forget to rate, like, and subscribe to the Woodsman podcast wherever you get your podcasts, with video exclusively on YouTube and Patreon.
Make sure to follow our personal accounts at Strange Kids and Piemaster J on all platforms. The Woodsman podcast is co-produced by Brent Murphy and Joey Rucker.
Recorded at Elite Sound Studios, located in the Inland Empire.
Written by Brent Murphy.
Technical support by Eric Bessero.
Video editing by Joey Rucker. And blood, sweat, and tears by all of us.
Any additional content by the Woodsman podcast may not be used without our permission. Copyright Cabin 13 Productions. And remember,
Bring a can of snuff, just in case.